Okay, we finished Act 1, the invasion. Act 2, defense. On to Act 3, victory and defeat. So, let's look at victory first, because who doesn't want to be a winner? Let's look at the anamnestic response, all right? First time your adaptive immune system encounters a pathogen, it's slow to respond. So look at the lower left diagram there, the red curve, the graph there. Look on the bottom axis, those are the number of days, 5, 10, 15, 20. On the left axis, you see antibody titer. That refers to the number of antibodies in your system. So look what's going on here. So as I mentioned before, like mumps. I had the mumps when I was a kid. And mumps is a virus that attacks your salivary glands. You get a fever, your face swells up, you look like some kind of mutant chipmunk. You're sick for about a week or so. You're uncomfortable, you're not happy, you're whiny all the time. Mom brings you hot tea and chicken soup. And then somewhere around day 10, look what's going on. Your body is making antibodies like crazy. The helper T cells are also cloning the memory cells. They're also making the killer T cells. APCs are wandering all over the place. Wandering macrophages are out there looking for trouble. They're getting bad guys. After about 10 days, you win. You have defeated the mumps, all right? But it took 10 days. Took 10 days, you were sick. After that point, look, your antibodies start to decrease because you're not fighting the battle anymore. You won. Victory. You won. You beat them. So the antibodies can now go down a little bit. But what's going to happen here? So the first time you get invaded by a pathogen, it takes time for helper T cells to clone all those memory cells and killer cells. It takes time to make all the antibodies. But what happens the next time? So on the second time you get invaded by mumps, or the 17th time, or the 78th, or the 937th, or the 43,298th time that mumps tries to get into your body, your adaptive immune system comes down like a sledgehammer. Look at the graph on the right now, the secondary response. This is where the memory cells produce a stronger and faster response. The pathogen doesn't even get a foothold. Have you ever had a day where you wake up and you don't feel quite yourself? You're not really sick, but you just kind of feel like, maybe your stomach's a little queasy. You feel a little fatigued. Somebody calls and says, hey, you want to go shopping? You go, nah, not today. I just don't feel myself today. But then, within a couple hours, you feel fine again. You call them back and say, hey, still want to go shopping? I can't say for sure. What may have happened was, it may have been that some pathogen that you already beat once before tried to invade your body again. But instead of being sick for a week or 10 days, your adaptive immune system knocked it out within a matter of hours, and you were fine again. This is what we mean by immunity. This is called the anamnestic response. You see, once you have T and B memory cells, once you have antibodies, and T and B memory cells, by the way, white blood cells are generally short-lived. Most white blood cells live a matter of days or weeks. T and B memory cells live for years. And you'll also have antibodies hanging around out there in your body fluids for some time to come. When that happens, we say you're immune. That's what we mean when we say you're immune. I'm immune to the mumps. It means I have T and B memory cells for the mumps. I have antibodies for the mumps. They are out there right now guarding me to make sure I don't ever get the mumps again. So, if the immune system's so great, why does it sometimes fail? What goes on? Well, some people are born with defective immune systems. Severe Combined Immunodeficiency Disorder, SCID. This was the famous bubble boy of the 70s. He was born without an adaptive immune system. He had no T or B cells. Therefore, he could not develop immunity to anything. He always had to fight everything off as though it was brand new. So he was always risking the fact that something would kill him, because sometimes, you can't fight it off. So this is where, what do you do for people like this? The only thing you can do is a bone marrow transplant where you try to give them T and B cells. Problem is, you might have a transplant rejection, plus the operation might introduce bad guys. They did try a bone marrow transplant with him from his sister, but somehow an infection got introduced during the operation and he died. Your immune system weakens with age. As you get older, it doesn't work as well. Those memory T and B cells, yeah, they do last for many, many years, but as you get older, just everything, it doesn't work as well when you get older. Things are supposed to be floppy, get stiff. Things supposed to be stiff, get floppy. Things don't work right the way they're supposed to anymore. So like the shingles. Chicken pox, if you had the chicken pox like I did when you were a little kid, my immune system beat it. But even though it beat the chicken pox, it may have wiped out 99.999% of all the chicken pox virus, but the 0.001, there were a few survivors. And what they did is they went underground, they hid in the shadows, they hid in the sewers, they hid in decrepit buildings and under cardboard boxes and things. And as you get older, they keep peering out, from the cracks going, oh, damn, there's still memory cells out there. But at some point, they start seeing fewer and fewer immune cells, and then they go, all right, you guys, now's our chance. Let's go for it. And they emerge again. And that's what shingles is. That's why you get a second inoculation when you get older. And basically, once again, it's just going to make your immune system now get stronger again, make more T and B cells and antibodies for that chickenpox virus so that you don't get the shingles. HIV, AIDS, some diseases weaken the immune systems. Like we said before, HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, leads to AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, where you cannot fight off the bad guys anymore, all right? So, by the way, sometimes I mistakenly hear people say that AIDS is an autoimmune disorder. No, AIDS is the exact opposite of an autoimmune disorder. AIDS is on the opposite side of the galaxy. Remember, autoimmune disorders are where your immune system is so strong, not only does it attack bad guys, it attacks you. AIDS is where your immune system is so weak it can't fight off anything. So people who have HIV leading to AIDS, they die of all kinds of weird things that normally wouldn't kill anybody. Problem is your immune system can't fight anything. It's so weak it can't fight anything. The opposite of autoimmune. So, here you see poor nutrition. For example, hypoproteinemia. Remember, we had all those plasma proteins. The antibodies are proteins. All the cytokines, all the interferons, interleukins are proteins. So what happens is if you have poor nutrition, not only are you hungry all the time, and you're sick, and you don't develop well, your immune system, you can't make all the proteins you need to fight off bad guys. You have hypoproteinemia. No food, no amino acids means no proteins. Therefore, kids who are malnourished are also going to get sick more often. It's a terrible double whammy. And then there are some diseases, like you see here on the lower left. You have multiple sclerosis attacking the nervous system, lupus on the lower right attacking the connective tissues of your body. Immune system may fail to distinguish self from non-self. This is where, as we said, it's so important that your immune system has to be able to tell the difference between you and what's not you. If it fails, then it starts to attack you. So in multiple sclerosis, it's attacking your myelin sheaths, which line the axons of your nerves, your neurons, and then your nervous system doesn't function effectively. In lupus, you attack connective tissues, you get inflammation and stuff. So autoimmune disorders, things like type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, it attacks your joints, lupus, and so on. So that's why, yeah, your adaptive immune system is wonderful. It normally can beat bad guys and kill them, but sometimes it fails. It's just like all wars, Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. You hope that you win, but every once in a while you don't. So, what happens in COVID-19? Why sometimes do people not win that? Remember, most do. Most people who get sick with COVID-19 win. Their adaptive immune system wins the battle. But some people don't. How exactly does the immune system lose in some cases? Well, there's something called the Cytokine Storm. Would be a good name for like a heavy metal group, don't you think? There's something called lymphocyte exhaustion. In severe infections, T cells and natural killer cells can become overworked and they die. Remember I said white blood cells normally only live for a matter of days or weeks anyway. Well, if they're overworked, they may die sooner. And if they start dying sooner, that leads to a condition called lymphopenia. Penia means less than or not enough of. So you don't have as many lymphocytes as you should. You have lymphopenia. So look in the illustration on the left side. As your T cells and natural killer cells decline, lymphopenia, well, now you don't have as many fighters out there. Now you become more susceptible to secondary infections. Things like bacteria and fungi and parasites and stuff like that now may be able to get a foothold. So you get an increase in other infections, these secondary infections. So that's big trouble, all right? So your immune system starts losing battles, and not only now do you have COVID-19, you've got other kinds of infections coming in on top of it. Then what happens is your immune system sees that it's losing the battle, and it basically overreacts. So immune cells begin releasing tons of cytokines, interferons, interleukins, and tumor necrosis factors in order to compensate for the lymphopenia. It's like it's sending out all kinds of little text messages now. All kinds of Paul Reveres now are out galloping around town saying the viruses are coming, the bacteria are coming, and basically you just then remember generalized responses to infection are things like fever and inflammation. Yeah, so what happens is all these cytokines now start activating the immune system to the massive, as much of an extent as they can. They start basically trying to cause the biggest immune response possible. And unfortunately what that does is it exacerbates inflammation. It exacerbates ARDS, the acute respiratory distress syndrome. And it starts to jeopardize other organs as well. So look on the right-hand side of that illustration. As you see, the elevated cytokines, the cytokine storm. Remember, you have these ACE2 receptors. You have them mostly in your lungs, but you have them in other parts of your body as well. Plus, other parts of your body are going to respond to the inflammation and so on. So notice in the lungs, ARDS, respiratory failure. In the liver, you see elevated liver enzymes, ALT, AST, indicating the liver is struggling. Kidney, increased urea and creatine means that the kidney is struggling. Heart, you see there, creatine kinase, lactose dehydrogenase. An increase in those enzymes will be signs. In other words, when they're examining your blood now, they're doing your blood work, they're going to see all these elevated enzymes levels. That's telling them that, yeah, all of your organs are now starting to struggle with this immune over-response. And then it's kind of, you start to spiral downhill at that point. Lungs fill with mucus and fluid. Other organs also fail. That's defeat. The cytokine storm. Interleukin 2, interleukin 6, interleukin 1 beta, tumor necrosis factor alpha. The cytokine storm rages out of control and your body just can't handle it. That's what happens, all right? So what are they doing for people that have COVID-19? What kind of drugs are they looking at? So look there, over on the left, you see the lungs being invaded by the virus. On the right, look in the middle of the big blue cloud, the cytokine storm again. Here we go. So some of the drugs they're using to treat people with COVID-19 are trying to attack the virus itself. But many are actually inhibiting your immune system. Yeah, you heard me right. They're giving people drugs to try to inhibit the immune system. Because remember, what's actually killing you is not the virus itself. It's your immune system that's killing you. This is why I get a chuckle when I hear people say, I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm just going to boost my immune system. I'm going to eat natural foods and meditate and do yoga and use essential oils and take vitamin D. Now, all those things are wonderful. Yeah, by all means, eat natural foods. Yes, take vitamin D. Oh, essential oils, they smell so nice. None of those things will cause you to make more T memory cells and B memory cells and helper T cells and killer T cells and antibodies. None of those will cause you to make any of those things. And aside, when you say you want to boost your immune system, remember it's your immune system that's killing you. So be careful what you wish for, huh? So amlodipine, that's a drug that inhibits viral replication. So there's a drug going after the virus itself. But look, dexamethasone. That's an anti-inflammatory, trying to inhibit inflammation. In other words, it's fighting your immune system. Ruxolitinib inhibits cytokine production in general, tries to cut down on the cytokines in order to reduce the cytokine storm. Siltuximab inhibits interleukin number 6. Canakinumab inhibits interleukin 1 beta. What you've got here are drugs that are trying to suppress your immune system response so that your immune system doesn't kill you. Okay, vaccines. What are vaccines? Well, vaccines developed by Edward Jenner in 1796. Now, the idea of a vaccine had been around for centuries, and sort of in various primitive ways, people had sort of developed a primitive form of vaccine, but Edward Jenner was sort of the first guy who really put it together. He took pus from the skin of a milkmaid with cowpox and injected it into an 8-year-old boy. It doesn't look like that boy's too happy about it either. But what was going on was, this was back when there was smallpox, and smallpox was a really scary disease. It killed a lot of people. George Washington had smallpox. Fortunately, he recovered. I think Mozart may have had smallpox. Smallpox was all over the damn place. It was killing a lot of people, and oh God, in horrible ways. Smallpox was a horrible disease. Back then, they had these people called milkmaids. Their job was to milk the cow, all right? And there's a disease kind of like chickenpox called cowpox. And a lot of the milkmaids were getting cowpox. Jenner noticed that the milkmaids who got cowpox did not go on to get smallpox. So he hypothesized that getting cowpox was making them immune to the smallpox. And that's why he injected the boy with the pus from one of the pustules of the milkmaid with cowpox. He later then injected the boy with smallpox itself. I'm pretty sure. You can double check that. Try to get that past a human subjects committee these days. I don't think so. I've dealt with human subjects committees before. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't fly. But in this case, he got away with it. It worked. The injection protected the boy from smallpox, a much more serious disease. And that's how it all came about, all right? Word vaccine, by the way, comes from vacca, the Latin word from cow, for cow. Damn Romans. God. Father Hindling hitting me with a stick when I would mispronounce Latin words in class. So vaccines provide immunity. That's what they do. Individuals are typically inoculated with a weakened or disabled antigen. So, they make vaccines for bacteria, for viruses. Like for bacteria, you can take bacteria, put them in the microwave, basically, cook them. So now they're definitely dead, but they still have their antigens on them, okay? Now, with viruses, as we said, viruses aren't really alive or dead. But what you do is you basically take a virus and just in some way chop it up so that it's not really active anymore, but your immune systems can still recognize the antigens on the virus. Now, the really cool thing about the SARS-CoV-2 virus, the one for COVID-19, is it doesn't even use a whole antigen. That's what's awesome about it. This new vaccine is an incredibly efficient and fabulous vaccine. And what happens, therefore, is the vaccine fools the immune system into initiating a response. So when you put a disabled bacterium into the body, remember the bacterium is dead. It got cooked in the microwave, can't make you sick. But the immune system still sees it, and it goes, oh my God, we've been invaded. And so, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, go to work. Adaptive immune system, T helper cells jump into action, APCs, eat it, and so on. And then what happens is the immune system goes on then to make antibodies and T memory cells and B memory cells. But the thing of it is, since you were only injected with a disabled thing, it couldn't actually make you sick. So you didn't get sick like when you got the disease, all right? You only had the antigen, a disabled antigen. So the immune system basically calls all the troops out. It has the jet fighter pilots take off from the aircraft carriers, the paratroopers go into the planes, the infantry marches and so on. And very quickly the immune system realizes, hey, we won already. We hardly even had to fight. Have them land the planes on the aircraft carrier again. Send the troops back to the barracks. Let them, continue their card games and stuff. Since you never got sick, the immune system hardly had to do anything, but it did. It was in action long enough to make the antibodies, the T memory cells, and the B memory cells so that you now have immunity. You can no longer be invaded by this thing. And your immune system basically got a really easy job. only had to work for a few minutes and got to take the rest of the time off, okay? Let's take a look at how the vaccine actually works. Here is the COVID-19 vaccine itself, all right? These are messenger RNA vaccines. I worked with messenger RNA back when I was doing research on the ion channels. We would inject xenopus oocytes, African clawed frog. We would inject their unfertilized eggs with mRNA. That would cause them to express ion channels on the surface of the oocyte. So I worked with this stuff a lot. The SARS-CoV-2 has antigens that are spike proteins. Remember, we saw them. We saw them on the virus, all those little things sticking off, okay? Well, what happens is the vaccine uses only the part of the virus RNA that makes the spike protein. Remember, viruses are just packages of either DNA or RNA. In the case of SARS-CoV-2, it's RNA. So look in the upper illustration. There you see a simplified diagram. There's the coronavirus. It's got a whole bunch of RNA in it. But what happens for the vaccine is they only take a little snip, a tiny little snip of the RNA that's the one that causes the spike protein to be made, all right? Then what they do is they package it in oil droplets. Why do they do that? Well, RNA is incredibly fragile. I remember working in the lab. I mean, we had DNA. You're supposed to keep DNA in the refrigerator, but oftentimes somebody would leave it on the counter overnight. We go, oh, crap. But it turns out it would be perfectly fine anyway. RNA, oh, my God. Whenever we made RNA, you would you wore gloves. You carried it very gingerly. When you carried all you had to do is take it from one room to the next. You would tiptoe from one room to the next. Somebody would see you and they say, what are you doing? You go, shh, I'm transporting the RNA. And they'd say, oh, I'm sorry. And even then, sometimes we'd carry it into the other room, put it down, and we would inject it, and it wouldn't work. We would have accidentally destroyed the RNA. RNA is so fragile that it would immediately be destroyed upon injection, so they put it inside of an oil droplet to protect it. The oil droplet also helps it get into your cells, because the cells of your body are surrounded with phospholipid bilayers, which are lipid soluble, so the oil droplet can easily penetrate the cell membrane. So the oil droplets are absorbed by cells in your body. The mRNA causes the cells to express the spike proteins. So you typically get an injection like in your, in the upper arm, into your deltoid muscle. So what's going to happen is some of those cells in your deltoid are going to make the spike proteins. Now you're thinking, oh my God, they're making the spike proteins. Yeah, the spike protein, remember, is just the little protein that your immune system recognizes. None of the actual virus is in this. So in the lab where they make the vaccine, there's no actual virus in those labs. They don't have any viruses there. The virus is not actually used. They're artificially manufacturing a little chunk of RNA. They're putting it into an oil droplet, and then that artificially manufactured chunk of RNA simply causes some of your cells to make the spike proteins. So the spike proteins, in a way, what's going to happen is your immune system sees them and it goes, oh my God, those aren't supposed to be here. So it jumps into action, starts making antibodies, T memory cells, B memory cells. The mRNA, by the way, will be digested by your cell. It'll end up in a lysosome or something like that. Remember how fragile it is. It's not going to last very long at all. And then what's going to happen is the little spike protein, remember, it doesn't have any of the other, no other part of the virus RNA is here. So in a way, the spike protein is like a Trojan horse that doesn't have any soldiers inside. So your immune system reacts, goes, oh my God, they're Trojan horses. So it makes defenses against them, and then it quickly realizes, wait, there's nothing inside that Trojan horse. Okay, guys, go ahead, take a break, we're done. And you just take the Trojan horses and use them like lawn ornaments, because they can't actually do anything. They can't harm your body. They're just empty shells of things that don't do anything, except they cause your immune system to respond and cause you to become immune. So your own body's DNA and RNA are not involved in any way. I see all this incredible misinformation on the internet. Your body's DNA and RNA have nothing to do with this. It's a piece of artificially manufactured RNA that causes your cells to make a hollow Trojan horse. Your DNA and RNA are not involved at any point along the way. So will you please tell people you know? that the vaccine contains only the part of the mRNA that makes the spike protein, not the pathogenic part of the mRNA. Therefore, it is impossible to get COVID-19 from the vaccine. It's not possible. Before they could give anyone the vaccine, they had to test it. That's standard. They have clinical trials. What I've done here, the two vaccines out right now, Moderna and Pfizer, I read the actual articles and I combined data from both of their trials. All right, so you see the references down there in the bottom. Those articles are online. They're free to the public. You can download them and read them. I did. So let's take a look. You have two groups. That's the way research is done in this case. You have a placebo group and a vaccine group. There are roughly 37,000 people total in each group. Those people got an inoculation. The vaccine group got the actual vaccine. Placebo group got saline, salt water, all right? Now, a lot of people had some sort of minor reaction to this. They call it an adverse event. You can see under the chart there, under the table, headache, nausea, chills, redness, swelling, fatigue, muscle pain, joint pain. In most cases, they were minor. They went away within a day or two. In some cases, they were serious enough that they thought a doctor should take a look. In the placebo group, 158 people out of 37,000 had a serious adverse effect. In the vaccine group, 164 out of 37,000. And then in the placebo group, there were 7 fatalities. And in the vaccine group, there were 4 fatalities. And you're thinking, wait, 7 fatalities from getting injected with saline? No, that's the point. And getting injected with saline didn't cause them to die. It's just when you have 73,000 people together for a month, I mean, that's the size of Flagstaff. Do you think a few people would die per month in Flagstaff? Yeah, some people just die from whatever, stroke, heart attack. But you still have to put it down if it happens during the vaccine trial. So notice there were 158 versus 164, 7 versus 4. What does that say? It says that overall there were a very tiny number of serious and fatal adverse effects, and they were exactly the same for the placebo and the vaccine group. What this says is when it comes to adverse effects, there was no difference between the vaccine and salt water. So if you're worried about getting inoculated with the vaccine, it's no more dangerous than getting inoculated with salt water. Most peculiar side effect from the vaccine so far, it's causing some recipients to develop mutations that glow in the dark. Now, I hope you realize immediately that that's false. But the stuff I've seen on the internet about the vaccine is absolutely ridiculous. It's that ridiculous. Basically, people are saying things equivalent to that it's making you develop mutations that cause you to glow in the dark. It's absolute nonsense, and it amazes me. It just depresses me and amazes me that there are people out there who are intentionally spreading misinformation and fear about this vaccine. One of them is this woman, Cheryl Atkinson, former CBS News correspondent, has an undergraduate degree in journalism, so she's well qualified to talk about this. In the past, she's published stories attempting to link vaccines to autism, which it's not linked, has posted misleading and inaccurate information about the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine on her internet site and on Parler, where people are eating it up. As she read through the list of the excipients, the so-called ingredients in the vaccine, as she read, she couldn't pronounce most of the names. So that's her background in science. She can't pronounce the names of the excipients that are in the vaccine. And yet, she's trying to scare people on the internet about the vaccine. Yeah, when you're ignorant of science, big words can seem scary and mysterious. She's a disgrace to her profession, is what she is. By the way, keep in mind, Pfizer is the company that makes Viagra. I mean, come on. If they can raise the dead, they ought to be able to save the living, don't you think? Okay, so how can I become immune to COVID-19? Well, you can get sick and recover. So you can get the disease and then hopefully recover from it. Basically, playing Russian roulette. Based on the best numbers we have right now, of every 50 people who get COVID-19, one of them dies. So it'd be like playing Russian roulette, but instead of 6 chambers, there are now going to be 50. So your chances are pretty good. I mean, what the heck? Only 1 out of 50 dies. But, go ahead. Load the revolver, put it up your forehead, pull the trigger. You got a 1 in 50 chance of dying. Or, an alternative is, you can get vaccinated. That's like playing Russian roulette with a gun that has a little flag that says bang on it. You might get a scratch on the side of your head. So there's your choice. You can either use an actual gun that has a bullet in it, point that at your head and pull the trigger, or you can use a gun that has a little flag that says bang and point that at your head and pull the trigger. All right. Now, actually, there is one other way to become immune. I should mention it. That's to use essential oils. For God's sakes, I hope no one actually believed that even for a moment. No, there are only 2 ways to become immune. You can get immunity only in 2 ways. I don't care how many natural foods you eat, how much vitamin D you take, how many essential oils you use, how much yoga and meditation. Those are all wonderful. None of those will cause you to make T memory cells and B memory cells and antibodies. None of those can make you immune. Only 2 ways to become immune. Get sick and recover, or get vaccinated. I know which one I'm going to do. Hopefully, provided I can get vaccinated in time. So, epilogue, we're done with the 3 acts. Apologies, concessions, and pleas. I'm sorry if I offended anyone. My sense of humor is sometimes a little over the top. Probably made a few mistakes. Go ahead, sue me. I'll probably be dead before the case makes it to court anyway. Please wear a mask and get vaccinated, will you? Please. But that's all, folks.